Welcome to the first attempt of porting an application to OpenBSD. The purpose of this video is to try to port this application called Chisel. It's a fast TCP/UDP tunnel over HTTP. I use this application quite often on Linux, and basically I use it as sort of like a client and server. I install server somewhere, and then from the client I connect to it and create a tunnel. Then I have basically a free VPN. So I use it more or less as a VPN to bypass the geolocation restriction. And the client server actually is just one executable file. So that's a positive thing about it. So this application doesn't have any actually releases for OpenBSD. I have already checked it. The only releases are for different architecture of Linux and Mac OS and Windows. So the first step is to try to just compile it from source code and see what sort of error are we getting. I have installed Go. If you want to install it, you can just do as pkg-add go. So let's create a directory, since I am not really hoping it will compile on OpenBSD. But usually the porting any Go sort of stuff is easier than other thing. My nightmare is actually JavaScript, but Go is relatively easy, but I'm not familiar with Go that much. So we got our first error is about the argument. Let's try just to remove the V, see what happens. So we have made progress. It is downloading the dependencies, and let's see whether it reaches the compilation or no. So my objective is to divide this video to two videos actually, and so I'm going also to record them separately. So the first one is just try to port this application to OpenBSD, build it locally, and the second video is going to be submitting a patch to the upstream to the OpenBSD ports. So hopefully in the next releases, if we do as pkg-add Chisel, then we can download the binary straight away from the OpenBSD ports rather than doing the local compile. But if that's not gonna be successful, assuming if it's not, I also have a plan to submit the patches to this repository. So worst come worst, then somebody can just like do the Go install on the local OpenBSD and then have the Chisel running. So we got our first error, second error. The first one we already solved it. So the second error is about a dependency that is not compiling, and it's coming from the term util. It says that this file on line 10 has an unused import. This is a funky thing about Go, which is a good thing in my opinion, is that if you import something, let's say import a package or whatever in your application, and you don't use that, your code won't compile. So now the question is why why even this build here is passing. So there is something is wrong about this library, and we need to actually check it out. So let's check this library and see what is wrong and why we get such an error, whereas if I try to build it on Linux, probably I won't get any error. So what does it do exactly? It says it exposes some basic useful functions, and what this function do will return whether or not the given file is a TTY. So okay, is a TTY, alright. To use a native operations when possible, it will fall back to using is TTY function from CGO. Okay. in case that the platform isn't unknown. So the one that he had the problem was from this one, so C. And if we go here, we have to first of all remove this, but I have already gotten some sort of a grip of what is going on. So it doesn't have any indicator for OpenBSD build. If you see the first line, you see it has not a Windows, not Linux, not Darwin, not FreeBSD. If you see go, then execute this. And I already saw a file here is a TTY Nix, and I'm assuming this is supposed to support any Unix stuff. Yeah, build Linux, Darwin, FreeBSD. So the OpenBSD stuff is missing. And that is bad, but the positive part about it is it's already supporting FreeBSD, so that means it's working on FreeBSD, so we just can modify it for OpenBSD. But another bad news is this code seems unmaintained. The last update was 7-8 years ago, so I'm not sure if I submit a patch and open a pull request, since there is one also dangling here since 8 years ago. So I'm not sure if I submit a pull request, the author even cares about it or no. But let's see. We clone this and we try to patch it. So I'm going to modify each and every file. I at least try to open each and every file and try to see what is wrong. So I'm just adding the OpenBSD thing here with hope of having it working. Okay, this is just for Linux. Getpass.go. Okay, if it's not OpenBSD, so what does it do? So it calls the getpass, and if it's none of these platforms, it just like throws an exception or panics not implemented. So we don't want to happen that on OpenBSD. We want to actually make this getpass Nix to run, which is an app correct implementation for most of the platforms, excluding Windows obviously. Just to make sure I check every file including the Windows file. Yeah, I don't need to change this. Is a TTY Cgo, so if it's not FreeBSD and if it's not OpenBSD and it's a Cgo, then also remove this stuff as well to make the code cleaner. Is a TTY Go, so this probably should throw the exception, yes, not implemented. So I am still not 100% sure about the functionality of it, except that it has to do some stuff with the operating system, and calling is TTY and trying to actually do the native call. But how it is used in Chisel, I got no idea about it, so I'm just like blindly more or less adding things to it and hoping for the best. And the last file is this, which probably we can ignore it. Okay, that is fine. So now if we do a git diff, we see that we added everything that is needed. Yeah, it looks fine. And let's try to build it. Go build. So we get an error because there is no go mod exist. That is very weird. That's a problem of unmaintained library. And now it's expecting to add a URL. So I'm going just to add this one for now and hoping that the author will merge my fixes. Otherwise, I gotta maintain a fork of this term util and try to pursue probably the Chisel author to use my fork of term util instead of using the fork from instead of using the original one. And that's going to be the second issue that I have to tackle, because I also need to, after patching this one, I also need to patch this to, at least for now, to use the local version to see whether we get any more errors or no. So go mod tidy, and now let's do a go build, see what happens. Okay, it looks successful. I'm not expecting to generate any file, which is fine. Now let's go back to our Chisel and then try to clone this and apply the fixes. Okay, so now we have to actually point to the local library, the one that we have fixed in just a minute ago, and not point to this one. So for that one, I think I need to say go, I don't remember it, go points to local library. Okay, using replace, this should help us somewhat. And okay, so here go mod edit, replace, and here we have the remote address, and then we have to substitute it with the local one. Okay, that is cool. So what's the remote address? This is the remote address, and then this one here, and it's called go term util. If I look into the go mod file, now we should see some changes, and yes, it is here. So let's try to do a go build here, see what happens. Okay, it has built, apparently successful. Well, that was an easy one, and we got the binary, fingers crossed. Let's see whether it's running or not. And it is running. Okay, that is good. I mean, at least on the first glance. We have to do a testing, but I see a small issue is about the versioning. It's actually producing 000 for versioning, whereas here we have v177. So we have to fix that one. So I see a make file here, and let's look into the make file. Probably we shouldn't run the go build. We should actually execute the make file. So let's look into the make file. And already in the first line we have version, build, and build directory, stuff like that. So that is good. But more importantly, it has already FreeBSD built. So I'm very happy, because we can actually copy this again and then make it for OpenBSD. And where is this? OpenBSD, and it's a 64-bit build. It should be fine for now, until we think about the 32 maybe later on. But now the first objective is to make this application end-to-end working, and then afterwards we can worry about the other architecture. So let's see, is there any other thing I'm missing? So I'm going to do a search here for FreeBSD and try to, okay, I have missed part of it here. OpenBSD. So now if I do make, okay, this is a good mistake I have made. So most of the make files that you see in the wild, they are actually compatible with the GNU make, and they are not really compatible with the OpenBSD make. So the default make command that we have on OpenBSD, that's not the GNU make, it's a OpenBSD make. So we need to install the gmake. I think I already have it. Let me try it. And yes, we have gmake already. If you don't know, basically you can just do pkg search. Of course, pkg search is my custom command, so I think it's called gmake. Let me search for it. Gmake. And yes, it's a gmake, and as you can see, if I get the info about it, it says it's a GNU make. So you need to install this gmake so you can actually run the gmake command. So we cannot compile this one with the make only. So gmake, now it gives another error which is complaining about the Go releaser. So let's see where the Go releaser is used. So it is used when it's trying to compile for all the platforms, but we want to compile only for OpenBSD now. So I think I can say make OpenBSD gmake. You see, that's the error for the second time. Made a mistake second time. Now it's compiling, and I'm expecting actually the compilation to pass. Alright, that is good. And the build version seems also legit correct. So let's go to the build directory, version, revision, bin, and I already have the Chisel OpenBSD MD64, and it has also the correct version. So everything is working so far fine. Now let's do the actual test and try to connect to my my Chisel server and see whether actually it can actually bypass it can actually forward the traffic from my local to the Chisel server. So for that one, I'm going to copy a simple script I have written to not show you, let's say, my credentials. So I think it's called proxy Chisel. So we need before that also to rename this file from Chisel OpenBSD to Chisel for just convenience sake, and I'm going to modify this file. So basically I have to just say Chisel client, keep alive 10 seconds, and then this is the credentials, the authentication user pass, and also the server that I'm going to connect. And these are stuff that I have already exported as environment variables. So no worries, and finger crossed is going to work. So it is listening and it is connected. Okay, that's a very good thing. That's a very positive sign. Now let's do the real test. It seems connected, so I want to check the traffic routing as well. So for that one, I'm going to download a Chrome extension or a Chromium extension, doesn't matter, to actually set the SOX proxy in my browser. So what is called, let me remember some keywords, and Chrome extension SOX proxy. Okay, we can use this proxy helper, I'm assuming. I think I have used it before. The name is very familiar. Going to install this. And okay, install. Alright, so it has installed. Let me bring it here. So now I have to actually pass the port and stuff. So here is the address, which is localhost 1080. So my basically computer is listening to these ports and it's going to connect to the Chisel server. So 1080 SOX 5, that is good. And now if I do SOX proxy, and let me go to Google here instead of qvent because it doesn't give the best results. So my IP address, let's try to see which ISP is showing. Okay, so the ISP Amazon Portland, yes, it's working fine. It is actually routing the traffic. So if I disconnect here and I try to refresh the page, it should actually fail because I already disconnected. Okay, it's working fantastic. So this is the first part of this porting attempt of the Chisel. In the second part, as I have said in the beginning of the video, I'm planning to submit this one to the, first of all, to the maintainers on GitHub, and afterwards try to submit it to the OpenBSD ports and see whether I can get a positive feedback from them to add this Chisel to the ports. So that's all for this video. As always, make sure to press the like button and subscribe to the channel. Have a great time. Cheers.